25 reasons we're glad we grew up in the 70s. Do you remember the 70s? The era of pet rocks, Saturday morning cartoons, and Fonz as the ultimate icon. Sure, there was political drama, but for us, it was the best time to grow up. If you think it was just about music and fashion, you're mistaken. Let's dive into 25 reasons why the 70s were the greatest decade to be a kid. Ready? Music came in vinyl, cassette, and 8-track. In the 1970s, the way we listened to music was as much about the format as the tunes themselves. Vinyl records, cassette tapes, and 8-tracks were the go-to options for enjoying music, each offering a unique experience. Vinyl, the most iconic of the three, was prized for its superior sound quality. Listening to a vinyl record wasn't just about hearing music, it was an event. You'd carefully slide the record from its sleeve, set the needle, and let the rich, warm tones fill the room. Album covers often doubled as art, with detailed designs and liner notes that added a layer of intimacy to the listening experience. Cassettes, on the other hand, brought portability into the mix. Compact and easy to carry, they were perfect for road trips or personal listening, especially when paired with the latest tape players or boomboxes. And then, there were 8-tracks, a curious format known for its clunky design but groundbreaking in its ability to seamlessly loop music. While less beloved than its counterparts, it symbolized the era's experimentation with technology. School lunches had a flexible definition of healthy. In the 1970s, the term healthy when it came to school lunches was, well, up for interpretation. Take a peek at a 1974 Texas school lunch menu, and you'll see what we mean. The so-called brain food of the time included hearty options like chili burgers, hamburgers, oven-fried chicken, buttered corn, and the ever-present fruit gelatin. Balanced? Maybe not by today's standards, but back then, it was all about satisfying hungry kids while keeping the meals budget-friendly. Nutritional concerns took a back seat to flavor and filling portions. And honestly, it's a wonder we weren't snoozing through our afternoon classes with those carb-heavy meals. Yet, there was something comforting about these lunches that stuck with us. The taste of buttered corn alongside crispy chicken or the wobble of fruit gelatin on the tray was oddly satisfying. They weren't health-conscious, but they sure made school days a little brighter and tastier. The world felt more safe and secure because of Fred Rogers. In the 1970s, the world seemed a little less intimidating thanks to Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood wasn't just a popular show because of limited TV options. It was a lifeline of comfort for kids everywhere. The iconic theme song, "Won't You Be My Neighbor," wasn't just catchy. It was like a warm hug through the screen, reassuring us that everything would be okay. Fred Rogers had a unique ability to connect with his audience. His calm voice, kind demeanor, and thoughtful words created a sense of safety that felt almost magical. For children facing fears, insecurities, or even just the everyday challenges of growing up, his gentle approach was like a beacon of light. He made tough topics feel approachable and offered the reassurance we didn't even know we needed. His lessons weren't flashy or loud, but they stuck with us. He taught us about kindness, empathy, and the importance of being ourselves, all while helping us feel braver about facing the world. In a time before the internet or 24/7 distractions, Fred Rogers created a quiet, safe space where kids could feel seen, heard, and valued. That sense of security is why he remains an enduring figure of comfort and trust. We'd head to the video arcade with a pocket full of quarters. In the 1970s, the video arcade was the ultimate weekend destination, and all you needed was a pocket full of quarters. Unlike today's gaming setups, where endless rounds of Pac-Man or Fortnite are just a button press away, playing video games back then required real effort, and some allowance money. Each game cost a quarter, which made every moment at the controls feel special. Every move mattered, because running out of coins meant game over, literally. Getting to the arcade was an adventure in itself. We'd save up all week, waiting for that golden opportunity when our parents would finally say yes to a trip. Once inside, it was like stepping into another world. The glowing screens, the beeps and bloops of the machines, and the thrill of competing for the high score made it all worth it. Playing wasn't just about the games. It was about the atmosphere, the social vibe, and the sense of freedom that came with it. Learning the bump was the only dance move necessary. In the 1970s, you didn't need a whole repertoire of dance moves to own the dance floor. Learning the bump was all you needed. This simple, repetitive move had us bumping hips with our dance partners like it was the coolest thing in the world. There wasn't much to it, but that's what made it so fun. It was easy to pick up, and before you knew it, you'd be grooving in sync with the crowd. What made the bump so memorable was the energy and attitude it brought. It felt a little cheeky, maybe even a bit rebellious for its time, yet it was pure fun. Put on a track like KC and the Sunshine Band's Shake, 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 Shake Your Booty, and we'd be hip-bumping our way through the night without missing a beat. The simplicity meant you could go on forever, and we often did. What's your favorite memory from growing up in the 70s that you think everyone should know about? We experienced Star Wars for the first time, with zero expectations. In 1977, experiencing Star Wars for the first time was unlike anything else, mostly because we went in with zero expectations. Back then, there were no spoilers, no hype from older siblings, parents, or pop culture telling us it was a masterpiece. We didn't know the names Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, or Darth Vader, and we definitely had no idea how iconic they would become. We walked into that theater clueless and walked out with our minds completely blown. It was a raw, unfiltered experience. The opening crawl, the Star Destroyer stretching across the screen, the first clash of lightsabers, it was all new and exhilarating. There wasn't a guidebook or a list of must-see moments. Every twist, every battle, and every line of dialogue felt like it was ours to discover. For that generation, Star Wars wasn't just a movie. It was a shared experience that bonded us and sparked our imaginations in ways nothing else could. A private phone call depended on the length of your rotary phone cord. In the 1970s, privacy during a phone call wasn't a guarantee. It was a test of ingenuity and the length of your rotary phone cord. Mobile phones were a thing of science fiction, so every conversation started at the home phone, often bolted to the wall, with a cord as your only lifeline to potential privacy. For many, that phone lived in the kitchen, the busiest room in the house, which meant you had to get creative if you didn't want your entire family eavesdropping. The goal? Stretch that cord as far as it would go. Could you make it to the next room? Around the corner? Maybe even to a closet or a hallway with a door. Success depended on the cord's reach and how stealthy you were. If the cord didn't quite make it, you were stuck whispering or carefully censoring every word. It was possible to open junk mail without worrying about viruses. In the 1970s, opening junk mail didn't come with the digital risks we face today. Back then, the worst thing you might find in an envelope from an unknown sender was a chain letter, a harmless but often annoying request to pass along the message to a dozen friends or risk some vague misfortune. Unless you were particularly superstitious, these letters were easy to ignore or toss in the trash without a second thought. There was no fear of hidden malware or viruses that could wreak havoc on your life. The mail was just paper, sometimes stamped with colorful logos or slogans trying to catch your attention. Opening an envelope was simply a moment of curiosity, not a gamble with your personal security. The biggest danger was feeling obligated to respond to some quirky request or enter a contest you didn't care about. Everyone worshipped that Farrah Fawcett poster. In the 1970s, there was one poster that practically everyone had to have hanging in their bedroom. Farrah Fawcett's iconic red swimsuit poster. To put it in modern terms, think of a meme so universally beloved that it becomes a cultural phenomenon. Everyone wants it. You see it everywhere. And owning it signals to the world that you're in the loop, that you've got taste, and that you understand the adult world in a way your peers just don't. That was the power of the Farrah Fawcett poster. Farrah, with her stunning smile, feathered hair, and that unforgettable swimsuit, became the epitome of beauty and cool. It wasn't just a poster, it was a symbol. It said, "I'm part of something bigger. I get it." Displaying that poster on your wall wasn't just about admiring Farrah Fawcett's beauty, although that was certainly a part of it. It was about aligning yourself with the pulse of popular culture, showing that you knew exactly what was in, what was cool, and what made you part of the in crowd. Nothing was more joyously terrifying than Jaws. Jaws was a movie that took fear to a whole new level in the summer of 1975. Steven Spielberg's thriller didn't rely on flashy special effects or endless shark attacks. In fact, we barely saw the shark at all. Just a few quick glimpses near the end. But that was part of the magic. What Jaws did so brilliantly was tap into our primal fear. It was all psychological. The music, the buildup, the suspense. It made our imaginations run wild. Before we even knew it, Jaws had an entire generation terrified of every body of water. It didn't matter if it was the ocean, a lake, a swimming pool, or even the bath. It felt like there was a shark lurking just beneath the surface. You could be paddling around in a pool, and suddenly, you'd feel a shiver down your spine, convinced a shark fin was about to emerge from the water. What's one thing from the 70s that you think kids today would never understand? Shag carpeting made the best bed in history. There's something uniquely comforting about the feeling of sinking into shag carpeting, a sensation that only a true 70s kid can fully appreciate. The thick, plush texture of those carpets seemed to welcome you, wrapping you up in warmth and softness. It wasn't just for walking. It was the perfect spot to lie down and stretch out. Whether you were lounging after school or just playing around, that shag carpet was the ultimate retreat. One of the most memorable experiences? Doing snow angels on the shag. Instead of snow, you'd spread your arms and legs on the carpet, and the long, soft fibers would leave impressions, like a personal imprint of fun. It was a simple, almost magical experience that made you feel like you were part of something bigger, part of the cozy, carefree vibe of the 70s home. There was nothing quite like the joy of simply letting your body relax into that carpet. And for many of us, that moment still brings a smile to our faces. The shag carpet wasn't just a home furnishing. It was a playground, a bed, and a source of comfort all rolled into one. We were allowed outside without parental supervision. In the 1970s, kids had a level of freedom that's hard to imagine today. Whether you grew up in the city or the countryside, it wasn't uncommon to be sent outside with nothing more than a be home by dinner and a sense of adventure. There were no constant check-ins or phone calls, and the idea of a parent tagging along wasn't even a thought. You were simply free to roam, explore, and make your own fun. This was a time when sidewalks, backyards, and local parks became the playgrounds for entire generations of kids. Without the watchful eyes of parents, we figured out how to navigate the world on our own, finding friends to play tag, building forts, or riding our bikes for miles. The sense of independence was exhilarating. For many of us, it felt like a golden age of childhood, where the world seemed just a little bit bigger, and our place in it a little more exciting. And riding your bike didn't require extra equipment. In the 1970s, riding your bike was all about freedom and adventure, without the safety gear we see today. Helmets? They were practically non-existent. In fact, if you wore one, you might as well have been admitting that you were planning on crashing. It was the 70s after all, and kids rode their bikes as if they were prepping for the next big stunt. The idea of a helmet was laughable. If you thought you needed one, you probably weren't as tough as the other kids. We zipped down streets, raced down hills, and pulled off jumps like we were the next Evel Knievel, all without a second thought for the dangers. Sure, we might have had our fair share of spills and bumps, but back then, it was just part of the thrill. We didn't know how risky it was to let our heads go unprotected, but those were the days of carefree adventure, where the excitement of the ride was all that mattered. We wore our bruises like badges of honor, and a scraped knee or minor concussion was just part of the fun. In the 70s, biking wasn't about safety, it was about speed, stunts, and freedom. Saturday mornings were reserved for cartoons. Saturday mornings in the 1970s were pure magic. If you wanted to watch your favorite cartoons, there was only one window of time. Saturday morning, and you had to be there, tuned in, on time. There were no streaming services to binge-watch shows on demand like kids today have. If you missed it, you missed it. Simple as that. And honestly, we wouldn't have had it any other way. There was something special about the anticipation that built up throughout the week. You knew that come Saturday morning, it was your time to sit down with a bowl of cereal and dive into the world of Bugs Bunny, Scooby-Doo, and the rest of the beloved cartoon gang. You had to make every minute count, because that was all the time you had. You couldn't afford to zone out or flip the channel. You had to be engaged, or you'd miss the whole thing. Tiger Beat was the only news we needed. In the 1970s, Tiger Beat was more than just a magazine. It was our window into a world of fantasy, where teen idols like Shawn Cassidy and David Cassidy reigned supreme. Sure, most of the gossip and headlines in the magazine were probably just publicity stunts, carefully crafted by publicists to keep the myth of perfection alive. But we didn't care. In fact, we loved it. We bought into the glamour and the drama, thrilled by the idea that these flawless heartthrob teenagers were out there somewhere, living their perfect lives. The world of celebrity was all we needed to know. The adult news? It felt distant and irrelevant. We weren't interested in politics, world events, or anything else the grown-ups were consumed with. Tiger Beat gave us everything we wanted: juicy stories, exclusive interviews, and the thrill of getting a glimpse into the lives of the stars we adored. It was all about the fantasy, and we embraced it wholeheartedly. Which 70s trend or fad do you secretly miss the most? Rocks counted as pets. In the 1970s, we had a pretty unique take on pets. Some of us had rocks. And no, not as decoration or souvenirs, but as actual pets. We would give them names, take them on adventures, and even carry them around in our pockets, pretending they were just as important as a dog or cat. They couldn't show affection, of course, but that didn't stop us from treating them like members of the family. What's even crazier is that we paid real money for them. There were actual stores and street vendors selling rocks, despite the fact that rocks are everywhere. You literally couldn't walk a few steps without tripping over one. But the thrill wasn't in the rock itself. It was in the idea of having a special rock, one that was unique, and that we could claim as our very own. We learned everything we needed to know from Schoolhouse Rock. Schoolhouse Rock was the ultimate educational secret weapon for kids in the 70s. It didn't feel like school at all, yet it taught us everything we needed to know about grammar, math, science, and even politics. Those catchy tunes and colorful cartoons had a magical way of sneaking lessons into our brains without us even realizing it. Who knew we'd learn about conjunctions or how bills become laws, all while tapping our feet to the music? Conjunction junction? What's your function? We could still sing that song today without missing a single word. The brilliance of Schoolhouse Rock was that it turned dry subjects into fun, memorable experiences. The songs were so catchy. They stuck in our heads, and by the time the episode was over, we'd absorbed information that we probably would have ignored in a classroom setting. We'd stay up late just to watch Saturday Night Live. Back in the late 70s, Saturday Night Live was the epitome of late-night rebellion. It was this mysterious, edgy show that we could only dream of watching. For us kids, it wasn't just a TV program. It was an adult world that we were desperate to peek into, a world filled with jokes, skits, and celebrities that were way beyond our usual Saturday morning cartoons. Getting to watch even 5 minutes of SNL felt like we were getting away with something. We had to stay up late, sneaking past parents who didn't quite understand what the big deal was. But to us, it was like we were part of some secret club, catching glimpses of the humor, the music, and the chaos that made Saturday Night Live such a unique cultural phenomenon. Long road trips happened in the back of your family's station wagon. Road trips in the 70s were a whole different experience. Forget about the tech-savvy, entertainment-packed journeys of today. We didn't have GPS guiding us or any digital devices to keep us busy. No smartphones, no iPods, no tablets, no portable DVD players. Instead, we piled into the back of our family's station wagon, and the real adventure began. The drive could stretch on for hours, sometimes 8 or more, and we had to get creative to pass the time. There was no easy escape into the latest video game or streaming show. Instead, we made up our own car games, like I Spy, or counting how many blue cars we could spot. But as the hours wore on, we often slipped into that classic road trip trance, staring out the window at the endless passing scenery, letting the hum of the engine and the soft rhythm of the road become a kind of meditative lull. If somebody wanted to bully you, they had to do it in person. Bullying in the 70s was much more direct than it is today. If someone wanted to be cruel, they had to do it face to face. There were no social media platforms to hide behind, no anonymous messages to send. If someone had something hurtful to say, they had to approach you, look you in the eye, and say it out loud. As uncomfortable as that might have been, there was something raw and immediate about it. Sure, the words could still sting, and the experience could leave lasting marks. But there was a level of accountability. You couldn't hide behind a keyboard, and it was harder to spread rumors or target someone in the same way we see today. If someone was being a jerk, they were doing it in front of witnesses, making it a lot harder to avoid the consequences of their actions. We had both Sesame Street and The Muppet Show. Sesame Street had already established itself as a revolutionary children's program, blending playful characters with valuable lessons about numbers, letters, and social skills. Grover, Ernie, Bert, Big Bird, and the rest of the lovable cast didn't just teach us, they made learning fun and memorable. The songs and skits were so catchy, you could learn the alphabet without even realizing you were memorizing it. Then there was The Muppet Show, where things took on a more zany, adult-tinged flair. Kermit the Frog was everywhere, from hosting his iconic variety show to starring in wacky skits with guests like Steve Martin and Diana Ross. He was an unmistakable celebrity for kids, as well as a cultural icon of the era, bringing together humor for both children and adults in a way that was innovative for its time. Nobody was cooler than the Fonz. Happy Days gave us the ultimate cultural icon, the Fonz. Fonzie, portrayed by Henry Winkler, was a symbol of effortless coolness that captivated kids and adults alike. With his leather jacket, slicked back hair, and ever-present Fonzie was the personification of swagger. His laid-back, almost mystical confidence was something we all admired, even though we could never truly replicate it. What made the Fonz so cool wasn't just his style or catchphrase, though. It was his ability to command respect without trying. Whether he was fixing jukeboxes with a single punch or effortlessly diffusing tension with a smile, Fonzie was the epitome of charm and strength in a way that seemed timeless, almost otherworldly. He was the guy who could always get the girl, stand up for what was right, and manage to look cool doing it. And he did it all while making it look so easy. Bowl cuts were considered fashionable. In the 1970s, the bowl cut was all the rage, and it wasn't just for the stylish or trendy kids. It seemed like every child sported the same look. Inspired by the wholesome, cute appearance of Adam Rich, who played the youngest son, Nicholas, on the hit TV show 8 is Enough, this distinctive haircut became a must-have for many. Whether you lived in the suburbs or the city, you could count on seeing plenty of kids with hair that seemed to have been sliced around their heads by a parent using nothing more than a salad bowl for a template. While the look was undeniably simple, it was also oddly charming and a rite of passage for many 70s kids. There was something effortlessly cool about it, even if it looked like the work of an amateur stylist. The bowl cut was a unifying hairstyle that blurred the lines between social classes. It didn't matter if you were rich or poor. This was the haircut to have. Though we now look back and wonder why we ever thought it was a good idea, at the time, we thought we were the height of fashion, channeling that wholesome TV star look. It's a hairstyle that's forever etched in 70s nostalgia, a goofy yet beloved part of the decade's charm. The clothes were insane. The 70s fashion scene was truly something to behold. Looking back at those old photos, we might cringe a little, but there's a part of us that secretly loves the eccentricity and boldness of the era's clothing. Everyone was in on it. Whether you were a teenager or an adult, you rocked those wide-collar shirts, bell-bottom pants, and psychedelic patterns. It was a time when being loud and proud with your fashion choices was the norm. Bell-bottoms, with their dramatic flair, gave the illusion of a carefree attitude, while polyester fabrics and crazy prints made sure you stood out in the crowd. And who could forget the platform shoes? We were all walking a few inches taller, strutting around in shoes that could double as a workout for your calves. It was a decade where fashion was all about self-expression, and while it may seem outrageous today, there's a certain charm in how we all collectively embraced the wild trends. The 70s were insane, and that's exactly what made them so fun. Step back into the 1970s, a decade of profound change that reshaped America in ways we still feel today. From the rise of bold music genres like soul, jazz, and the birth of punk, to the cultural revolution sparked by powerful women and the first Star Wars film, the 70s were a time of transformation. But it wasn't all celebration. This was also a period of unrest, with protests, political scandals, and environmental concerns taking center stage. In this video, we'll explore rare photos that capture the essence of this pivotal era, where change was in the air and history was made. Hollywood BLVD, 1963. Sidewalk merchandise on Chicago's South Side, June 1973. (42nd and Park Avenue, Midtown, Manhattan, New York, 1965). Worshippers at Holy Angel Catholic Church on Chicago's South Side, October 1973. Coney Island Avenue and Brighton Beach Avenue, New York, 1980s. A student at the Westinghouse Industrial Vocation School on Chicago's West Side, May 1973. Dr. Pepper promotion in 1976. Heavy traffic on the Dan Ryan Expressway in Chicago, Illinois, October 1973. Swanky 1960s Tupperware parties. Men pose on a South Side street, May 1974. Thanksgiving, 1954. New York City, 1970s. Entrance to Disneyland in Anaheim in 1969. On August 9, 1969, the 1000th Burger Chef opened in Treasure Island, Florida. Grocery shopping in 1979. Pacific Southwest Airlines flight attendants, 1960s. In-N-Out Burger, Town Ave, Pomona, 1970s. Phillips 66 service station in the 1970s. It's 1980, so what did you get at the mall today? What's wrong with this 1976 photo? The state of Oregon was the first to go to a system of odd and even numbers during the gasoline crises in the fall and winter of 1973-74. 1960s surf babes. Women's Suffrage Day in Fountain Square, Cincinnati, Ohio, August 1973. Burger King in 1972. Computer operator, circa 1972. A boy and girl say grace on Thanksgiving in 1970. California, Santa Cruz, May 1972. The Cadets of America, a young drill team, perform on a Sunday afternoon at a community talent show on the South Side. The leader, Major General Acklin, is shown giving commands to the youngsters, July 1973. Burgers King 1950s and now. Members of the Cadets of America perform on a Sunday afternoon at a community talent show on the South Side, July 1973. The 1970s, when cars were colorful. Reverend Jesse Jackson speaks on a radio broadcast from the headquarters of Operation Push at its annual convention. Sad to say, but most people don't know who I am anymore. Street scene on 47th Street, May 1974. People born in the 1950s have lived in 8 decades, 2 centuries, and 2 millennia. We had the fastest cars, best music, drive-in theaters, and soda fountains. Artist Ron Blackburn paints an outdoor wall mural at the corner of 33rd and Giles Streets in Chicago, June 1973. Remember when we used to hang our Christmas cards across the wall on string? Woman selling "Have a Nice Day" balloons on a Chicago South Side street corner at Sox Park Baseball Field, June 1973. I grew up in the 70s. What was your first clue? A portion of a crowd of some 10,000 Muslims applaud Elijah Muhammad during the delivery of his Savior's Day message in Chicago, March 1974. A home entertainment department at a G.C. Murphy store in 1970. Religious fervor is mirrored on the face of a Muslim woman listening to Elijah Muhammad's Savior's Day message in Chicago, March 1974. A&W in 1970. Youths play basketball at Stateway Gardens high-rise housing project on the South Side, May 1973. Baskin-Robbins in 1986. Youngsters cool off with fire hydrant water in the Woodlawn community, June 1973. Baskin-Robbins in the mid-1970s. Boeing 307 aircraft operated by Pan American World Airways in the 1960s. Kmart interior, 1980s. Bonanza in 1970. Ladies enjoying a candlelit dinner, 1970s. Car seat safety in 1970. A mother's arm was the only protection. Las Vegas in the 1970s. Christmas Moaning, 1970. Lava lamps, iconic 70s living room decor. Americans enjoying leisure and playtime at a California beach in May 1972. Cooling down in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, 1970s. Frank Starbuck, a rancher in Fairview, Colorado, managed over 400 cattle and oversaw a 1,300-acre property. Pictured is a typical workday for Mr. Starbuck in October 1972. High school class, 1970s. A large crowd of Americans attended a grand parade held in Rifle, Colorado in September 1973. Nothing says 70s like shag carpet, wall paneling, brass wall plates, and a console TV. The bustling and lively scene in Las Vegas, Nevada in May 1972. S&H Green Stamps Redemption Center in 1976. Abandoned building on 37th and Prairie Street. '80s vintage high school. A band performs at the Lake Meadows Shopping Center in Chicago in August of 1973. Not well known, they are sharing their music at home, hoping it will lead to greater recognition. 1970s car show. Left, the Isaac Hayes Dancers. Right, musician Isaac Hayes performs at the International Amphitheater in Chicago as part of the annual Black Expo in the fall of 1973. '70s kitchen. Workers pass the time playing checkers on East 35th Street before going to work in Chicago, May 1973. 1959, Ford and Union 76 Cuties. Members of Chicago's South Side community line a portion of Dr. Martin L. King Jr., drive to watch the Bud Billiken Day Parade, August 1973. 1970s dining room. Participants on a float during the Bud Billiken Day Parade along Dr. Martin L. King Jr. Drive, August 1973. Christmas 1950s. Girls' fashion trends in the 70s and 80s. Two boys playing with a bicycle in Arizona in 1973. This is one of the beautiful snapshots of America in the 1970s. Lived in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The breathtaking beauty of Arches National Park in Utah captivates tourists and photographers alike. Pizza Hut in the 1970s. The breathtaking landscape of Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve in Colorado, 1972. The 1980s. Hikers take a break during a mountain climb in Nevada, May 1972. Girls and Cars, 1970s. The beaming, joyful face of a child riding a horse. (1970s) Girls' Dormitory. Hitchhiker with his dog, Tripper, on US 66, crosses the Colorado River at Topak. Family picnic in yard, somewhere in Maryland, June 1960. Southside group of children in a playground at 40th and Drexel Boulevard, October 1973. Going to the dance, 70s style. Left, Wabash Street Bridge over the Chicago River, October 1973. Right, a swimsuit-clad woman enjoys a summer outing at Chicago's 12th Street Beach on Lake Michigan, August 1973. Grocery shopping at Publix in Hollywood, Florida in 1966. Swimmers take to the water at 12th Street Beach on Lake Michigan in August of 1973. Grocery shopping at Safeway in 1968. Mother and child during an outing at Chicago's 12th Street Beach on Lake Michigan, August 1973. What were your favorite foods to eat at Ponderosa Bonanza Steakhouse? Shopping in wine section, circa 1976. The leading photo is at a mobile home park in New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota. Near Wood Island Station, East Boston, Massachusetts, 1973. White Cloud, Kansas, 1974. Outdoor food market at Haymarket Square, Boston, 1973. Rifle, Garfield County, Colorado, 1973. El Paso, Texas, 1972. Main Street of DeHue, West Virginia, 1974. Avenue D Housing Project, Lower East Side of Manhattan, New York, 1974. Shepherd Home near Leakey, Texas, 1973. Newport Beach, California, 1975. You dressed up and went to church and maybe for a walk on Sundays. Woolworth's home decor department in 1969. '60s street corner, Laguna Beach, California. Thanksgiving at Grandma's house in days past. Grocery shopping in 1969. A family enjoys a picnic at 12th Street Beach on Lake Michigan, August 1973. Grocery shopping in 1973. Left. Residents of Chicago's West Side check out a motorcycle, June 1973. Right. High school-age student at the Robert Taylor Homes, May 1973. 1970s surfers, 1975. Family at the Church of the Messiah on Chicago's South Side for the baby's baptism, August 1973. A student welder works in a machine shop course taught at the Chicago Opportunities Industrialization Center in the heart of the Cabrini Green Housing Project, October 1973. Kmart cafeteria. Because Kmart is your savings store, where your dollar buys you more. The Fruit of Islam, a special group of bodyguards for Muslim leader Elijah Muhammad, at the base of the platform, while Muhammad delivers his annual Savior's Day message in Chicago, March 1974. A look inside Sonic in the early 70s. Muslim women dressed in white applaud Elijah Muhammad during the delivery of his Savior's Day message in Chicago, March 1974. A&P grocery store in 1973. Did you ever collect S&H green stamps? Linda Ronstadt at her beach home in Malibu, 1976. Did you ever shop at Caldor? Lots of discussions, learning, yummy food and love shared in the kitchen. Did you ever shop at TG&Y? Memories from the Kids' Table on Thanksgiving, 1969. Pizza Hut buffet and salad bar in 1977. Kentucky Fried Chicken in 1970. Preparing for Thanksgiving in days gone by. Kentucky Fried Chicken in the late 1970s. Publix in 1972. Making phone calls in the 1970s. Remember King Vitaman cereal? A childhood favorite from 1968 to 2021. Pumping gas in the 1970s. The Cinerama Theater in Hollywood after the premiere of Paint Your Wagon, 1969. Slumber Party. Back in the day. Rustler Steakhouse in the 1970s. The Good Old Days. Safeway in December 1970. The Grocery Checkout, circa 1970. School Lunch at the Cafeteria, 1975. The Strand, Hermosa Beach, 1970s. Sears in December in the 1970s. Vintage Stewardessos. Shopping at Kmart in the late 1970s. Wendy's restaurant in 1974, back when you would see family actually eating in the dining room all the time. Shopping for records in the 1980s. Have you ever wondered what the lives of students in the 70s, 80s, and 90s were like? Did they have the same wild parties, clubbing, and mischief as students do now? So, what do you think? Did I hit all the highlights of the 70s, or is there something I missed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, check out the other videos in the series. Don't forget to subscribe and share Who Remembers with someone who'll appreciate these nostalgic gems. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.